What makes craft beer very important is that every sip that you take of craft beer, you can taste the full intent, the history, and the purpose of the people who made it and pushed it towards you. So that's what my beer is all about, basically. When I heard that statement, I was like, that's what Stimela is all about. It's about passion, legacy, and excellence. Now, each time you have a sip of that, those three words come through, and you can actually really, when you drink the beer, you can actually really drink and think. Secondly, it pairs very well with food. It's a diverse range of beers. It's quite creative. You know, I put a lot of creativity into it. I also draw and I write music myself, so I see it as art, like how an artist would paint a canvas. I have barley, hops, yeast, and water, and all these other different types of natural flavors I can put into the beer. Hi, my name is Tsikwe Molobye. I'm the founder and owner and the head brewer of Stimela Brewing Company. My first experience of my first beer, actually, I made a couple of mistakes on that one. Because normally how you would make your beer, obviously you would crush your grain, you would mash the grain, you would drain out the liquid, that's called the wort, you would boil it, you add your hop additions and all that. But the first one I made actually was a kit. You have your powders, your syrups as well, the malt extract, so I made it out of a kit. And during the lag phase of the yeast, so normally what it would do, it will rapidly boil, not boil rather, but it will rapidly ferment. And you can actually really see on looking at the fermenter itself that it's actually really fermenting pretty good. But there was one point where it just stopped moving, and I thought this thing was not doing its job. So what I did is that I added bread yeast into it, to continue the fermentation process as well. So it didn't come out very well, bottom line. So then I learned after a few tweaks here and there how to make a good beer, actually, about the yeast as well, because yeast is very important when it comes to beer, and especially what type of yeast you use, especially if you want to make a lager or a pilsner or a porter or a saison or a wit beer or an IPA. So your yeast is very important, so you need to know a lot about what kind of yeast are you using. It took me about, I think, probably 6 times, because I was brewing about twice every weekend. My poor wife, like she had to endure me, sleeping pretty late, and the smell of the wort boiling up in the kitchen as well. So yeah, she's been very, very patient with me, just brewing every weekend. So I think after 6 beers, my beers became very decent after that, actually, yeah. It was all about just the love and the passion, because I really enjoy science. I love the idea of like how the yeast cells would convert your simple glucose or your sugars into your alcohol, your different kinds of components, and like how the yeast can also like clean up your beer. It can clean up all the funny flavors that are in your beers and stuff. So I love the chemistry behind it, and I just enjoyed making good beers, and just giving it to people to try out. And people were actually really amazed that the beer was very good. And actually one of my friends was saying that, okay, how much do I owe you? He asked me that question. I was like, actually I should start making this into a business, because people always asking me like, okay, how much am I selling my beer? And I was from there on that I decided to make this my beer brewing into a business, actually. So I was brewing beer one day around 9 o'clock, pretty late at night, and then that's when I heard the train passing through, because we live pretty close to a train station, and that's where the name Stimela came about, because Stimela actually really means a train. in our township slang language across actually every ethnic group actually in the township. So we call the train a Stimela. So that's where the name Stimela came to me, because I also use the train when I go to work. I use the train to go to work, and I think of my dad as well. He worked with his hands. He used the train. My grandfather, he used the train as well. He made hats actually for a living. I'll just say that off the bat is that it's mostly about dedication, it's about passion as well, because most people sometimes they will start brewing beer and they get discouraged after their first, second or third beer, or in my case sometimes your sixth beer. Sixth, if that is such a word in English. But anyway, some people do get discouraged, like in the early stages of making their beer, and it's mainly about that passion. It's about as well being dedicated to making your beer and also loving the science behind it as well, because it's a very interesting process how the yeast actually really multiplies inside the wort and how it really breaks down the carbohydrates, or how it breaks down the sugars into simple sugars, and how it also cleans up the beer as well, and the sulfurs and all these other weird elements that may be inside of your beer basically. So it takes that as well, and knowing chemistry as well will help you a great deal and how yeast really works in making your beer. So the tagline is basically passion, legacy, and excellence. So it's all about passion. The beers are made out of passion. It's about legacy. So I just spoke early on about my father working with his hands using the train, and my grandfather as well. They're made with excellence as well. So I use quality ingredients to give you a quality product.
I have had the pleasure of trying, I think, all the beer styles here, and my personal favorite has always been the amber ale. I just like the way it tastes, and it's quite a dynamic beer, very interesting beer. I had the pleasure of trying the sorghum ale for the first time today in Mzansi Cargo, and I thought it was a very, very interesting kind of beer.
Out of all the beers, I particularly liked his Vit number 2 and his IPA, but most of all I enjoyed his chocolate coffee stout, which I believe is, to the style, it is one of the best beers I've tasted in a very long time. So I think that it's definitely a place that he should be pursuing that specific style.
So I had a couple of beers tonight, just tasting them, but my favorite, I think, out of all the beers that I've tasted was Platform Edge, if I'm not mistaken, that's what it's called. So I'm a lager guy, and I think that appealed to me. The smell was really great. Wasn't overwhelming like the stout, because that's the first beer I had. It tasted like stout, so I think I'm not the target market. And so obviously in comparison to that, the lager was very cool. It tasted cool. Was very light as well. And I think I enjoyed as well just the aftertaste. So it wasn't overbearing. So yeah, I think I gave it an 88 if I'm not mistaken. It was by far my favorite beer. I've never heard of craft beer, but that one made me really want to venture out and drink a lot of craft beer. So kudos on that one, man. It was very dope.